Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this, the last day of IMM Virtual 2021. Hope you've had a great week thus far. We've got a fantastic session to start the final day of the show. It's the Travel Editors panel session. We've got 4 of the leading travel editors of the UK joining us now. What you're about to see is an edited highlights of their conversation, but we'll also make available a full recording to you directly after IMM. So on our panel, we have Claire Irvin, Head of Travel, Daily Telegraph. We've got Lyn Hughes, founding editor of consumer travel magazine Wanderlust. We've got Mark Palmer, travel editor of the UK's highest circulation daily newspaper, the Daily Mail. And we've got Sophie Griffiths, editor of the pioneering, award-winning, all-conquering trade title TTG. And acting for us as moderator today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Paul Charles, the PR Supremo, founder of the agency, the PC Agency, renowned travel industry commentator, who was asked by the travel sector to lead 2 of the vital communications campaigns of the last year, Quash Quarantine and Save Our Summer. So I'm going to hand over now to Paul for this session.
Thank you, Henry, and it's an honour to be chairing this panel with such a great bunch of editors, really world-class editors that we're going to learn from today. And there's never been a more critical time, I think, to try and understand how the travel world is changing, what editors are thinking, how they're covering the changes that are going on. And crucially, we all rely on these editors to explain the complexities of travel. And boy, is it complex right now. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get through some pretty meaty detail on the next few weeks and months and how the world we all love is going to change. So you've already been introduced to them. And I'm actually going to start with Claire Irvin, Head of Travel at the Telegraph, for the first question. Claire, I want to know if you're happy to send reporters at the moment, and I'm sure many people watching will want to know this, to amber countries. Are you happy for reporters to be out there traveling, or what's the situation?
The situation at the moment is we have to undergo risk assessments for every trip we commission that is not a green list destination. So whilst I am very happy for people to be reporting anywhere that they deem safe enough for themselves to go to, we are having to go through a slightly lengthy and, from my side, painful process of establishing exactly what that is. It would be helped, of course, if the SCDO would give us any help and support whatsoever in actually clarifying whether they're happy for people to work in those amber countries. So that would be a massive help to us. SCDO, if you're out there and watching.
Are you lobbying? Are you pushing for that in any way? Have you spoken to them? Have you got a response?
We are. No, we haven't had a response. And, you know, that's a reflection of how it's been throughout the last year. You know, way back when the FCDO advice was 3, 4, sometimes even 5 days after Grant Shapps' announcements, and you know it appears to be still needing some alignment, shall we say. So of course, you know, and therefore it's not just myself and my you know, my journalists and brilliant freelance writers who are beholden to them. It's anybody wishing to travel fully insured to any of those amber countries, even if they are financially comfortable with the repercussions of quarantine, you know. So,
and having to self-isolate, of course. Mark, the same question to you, really, because it's such a fast-moving traffic light system that everybody's now having to get used to, where amber countries can turn green after 3 weeks, etc. Are you happy sending reporters into amber countries at the moment? Because the reason I'm asking this question is because obviously it limits where reporting can take place to the green list initially.
Well, I am happy to do that as long as the freelance journalist, it is normally a freelance journalist, is happy to I suppose, to take the consequences, which means self-isolating and that sort of thing. But what I realized today is that it's actually even more complex than I thought it was. We've got somebody in the UAE at the moment, and they're desperate to come back here, but they're trying to go via Iceland and spend 10 days self-isolating in Iceland before coming back here. But then they got stopped because they were flying on a Lufthansa airline, and so the planning is very, very difficult.
It is very difficult, and I guess the same. Somebody's waving from behind you.
Andrew, yes, he's always trying to get in on the action.
One of your top columnists. Nice to see you mixing good company. Lyn, same sort of area to you, because Wanderlust, of course, is a magazine which brilliantly covers more adventurous, perhaps more exotic destinations, as well as the classics. Do you feel hampered? Do you feel hamstrung at all at the moment by the fact you can't be certainly sending reporters to red or amber zones in great numbers? So how are you covering those destinations?
Well, as far as the magazine itself goes, obviously it's just a completely different beast to, a newspaper section. And so we've got that luxury in a way that we can cover destinations that, people will be looking ahead to go to perhaps next year, the year after. We have such long lead times that it would just be impossible to react in the same way that a newspaper can to, for instance, the traffic light system. And so in our next issue, we have actually got big first-person features on Kerala and on Bougainville in Papua New Guinea. And we've had big debates in-house about whether we should still run them. But the feeling we've got is, yes, in the magazine we should, because when we, last year, we're trying to follow where would be open, where wasn't. We always predicted wrong. It was just impossible. So we've decided to just make sure we've got the same, big mix in each issue of long haul, short haul, places that are probably people can go to this year, places they won't be able to. And then, so that's the magazine itself. And we have had journalists go out in, whenever there's been a window of opportunity, and that has worked well. So hence we have got those features. With the website, it's a very different beast. And we find that people on the website are very much trying to plan places that they can go to. And so, for instance, Portugal's trending. But there are also other big popular features are things like bucket list adventures, big trips to take when you can. People are they're dreaming, and they're trying to get ideas for when they can travel.
Sophie, at TTG, I mean, you've obviously covered this day in, day out, similar to the Telegraph and their daily blog, for example. And so you've taken a slightly different approach to covering this from a more newsy point of view. Would you say that you've grown readers on the back of this, that the trade have sort of really been desperate for this information due to a lack of clarity, perhaps from government or other sources?
Yeah, 100%. We saw that actually at the start of the pandemic. So a year ago, our web traffic just soared because people were just hungry for information. And we started running live events actually last April. We put on a seminar, pulled it together very, very quickly. God knows, normally we spend months planning an event, but obviously pull it together in days. And it was key for us that we made sure it was live because we knew that agents had all of these questions. And actually off the back of that, we then ran them every fortnight throughout the pandemic until September, when I was about to have a heart attack. So we moved it to monthly just to make it easier to get more resource. But the numbers that we were achieving in that time, there was one in May where we had 800 people attending because people were just hungry for information. At the same time, we created a hub on our website, Coronavirus Business Support Hub, and we had a live forum going on. So agents would type in questions. We'd have a panel of experts to direct to them. And the traffic has just stayed high because, like you said, there's just so many questions out there, so much information for agents to absorb, and they're just not getting it from the government. Like today, I had more questions from an agent asking me for advice on amber list destinations, or where they can go for PCR testing, or what is going to be accepted. What do we think the government are going to do? Because we're not getting any kind of signs from the government. They're not talking to the industry. They're not giving the industry any kinds of heads up. There's zero clarity. So in answer to your question, yes. And I think we will do for the foreseeable, because the government doesn't seem to prioritise this industry and prioritise giving any kind of information to it.
Yes, Claire, I mean, this is something obviously that you've been covering on the Telegraph blog every day, as I mentioned. Have you ever known a situation where you've perhaps been in the dark as much as everyone else in terms of the lack of information coming through from government? Because that then makes it difficult for you to interpret what's going on for your own readers who are desperate for information.
Yeah, and I mean, never have, I think, any of us come across a situation that has been so consistently chaotic, confusing, contradictory a lot of the time, based on very little understanding of the industry and the voters that they pertain to represent. A complete lack of understanding about how the travel industry works. And I'm not sure if it's worse or not, but an absolute lack of understanding on how people book holidays, how important holidays are to them, and the consequence of not being able to go on them. And, you know, it remains eye-watering, even down to the announcement on Friday, where I had, you know, we came off the back of the announcement eventually happening, and I did some video for Telegraph Travel, and I was really overexcited, I'll admit. And, you know, Jazz Hands Travel's open, and I got home very late and thought, actually, it's not though, is it? And once again, they seem to have abysmally misjudged the situation. They haven't crunched the numbers in the way that they say they are doing, or if they have, they haven't applied that in a apolitical way. And I can feel myself going into a rant, so I will stop there.
Well,
no, in answer to your question, I have never come across a situation like it before.
I think the one example as well, perhaps you were going to go on to talk about, was the fact that the Transport Secretary didn't even know what a travel agent was in the press conference on Friday.
Thought I'd leave that one for you, Paul.
Which is fascinating in its extreme.
That was my gift to you, but yeah.
Lyn, as a result then, let's just do a bit of forward crystal ball gazing, if you like, over the next few weeks. Do you think that we're going to have a summer? Do you think, as we know it, do you think that Europe's going to open up at the end of June, that we will in fact see USA open up, that the summer, to all intents and purposes, will look very different to where it was even 2 weeks ago or so?
I have got cautious optimism. I think a lot of it will open up. I think there's a pent-up demand, and as soon as countries get announced, people want to go. And I know with our readers, there's a lot of interest in the USA opening up, for instance, and that would be a fantastic opportunity for people. But I also have seen from our website traffic that people are searching for what they can do in September, for instance. And so, yes, there will be a bit of a summer, there will be people taking that opportunity, but there'll also be people booking for the autumn. And, you know, I think it's going to be a real key time.
From your website traffic, are you able to tell where they're searching? Can you see if they're looking for more glamorous, more adventurous destinations, or are they searching for Spain, Portugal, Italy, France?
It's a mixture, and as places, this is a rumour about somewhere, you do see people look for those. But people are also looking for things like, you know, the Caribbean, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily associate with a Wanderlust type reader. But one of the top performing pieces of content that we've had in the last month is a piece about nature in the Caribbean and where best to go for nature and walking and so on. That has done stupendously well. So I think the people are looking at the Caribbean as that type of place. African safaris is a gift that keeps on giving. It's always in our top 20 content at the moment, how to plan an African safari. If safari holidays open up again, I think they will do really well. And at the end of the day, you know, people do want those types of holidays. They want safaris, they want to be in nature, or they want something, you know, that's, you know, where a little bit of history, a little bit of heritage, a little bit of culture, and those type of destinations will do well. So I think, frankly, anywhere that opens up is likely to do well. But it is, yeah, to get back to the question, it's a real mix that they're looking for.
Mark, your weekly Escape opinion column has been a must-read every Saturday morning, as far as I'm concerned. Would you say that you're moving towards believing that this summer is going to be pretty normal, or what's your view on which destinations might be open and what it's looking like? Because obviously a lot of those watching this who work not only in travel PR or across in-house travel will be thinking, how much should I be pushing my destination? Is it realistic that it's going to open up? What's your view?
Well, I've been banging the drum as loud as I can, slightly so that I can sort of get the message across to myself more than anything else. And I've tried to be kind of relentlessly positive about it. And but actually, in the last couple of days, I have to say that my confidence has ebbed slightly. And I think there are still a lot of people who are scared out there. And I think the government has done a fantastic job at scaring people. And a lot of people, sadly, are taking the view that they're going to opt out this summer and they just can't be doing with it and they'll just stay at home or whatever. And I think that is really sad. And I think it's a result of the government not consulting people, not talking, not getting around a table with British Airways, with leading tour operators, travel companies, and hearing what they've got to say and trying to come up with imaginative ideas, come up with a solution, some way that we can get this show on the road. And I'm afraid it hasn't happened. And so I'm not as confident as I was. Even actually a couple of weeks ago, I thought Friday was a complete sort of fiasco, so disappointing. The only, I suppose, bright thing on the horizon is that there will be these reviews. It won't be like last summer where you've got 48 hours and you've got to leave Portugal or wherever it is. So the next review, it comes in, is it 2 weeks now, or just something like that, less than 2 weeks, a bit more than 2 weeks. And then hopefully, I mean, we had a story in the paper today about less than 1% of arrivals from, you know, hotspots, Greece, Spain, Italy, are testing positive for COVID. And so the figures, the figures are there. And so I suppose one's got to cling to the hope that this next review will change the landscape significantly. But I'm not brimming with confidence.
Sophie, do you share Mark's pessimism, or are you hearing from obviously agents across the trade and operators that in fact their bookings are starting to improve since the green list appeared, and amid rumours of the next places to be on the green list review ready for June the 7th?
Yeah, I share his frustration with the government. I think, Mark pointed out, we're going to hear in 3 weeks' time, but we still don't know, is that 3 weeks from Friday's announcement, or is that 3 weeks from the 17th of May? There's zero clarity with regards to that. So again, the industry cannot plan. In terms of confidence, I was looking at our TTG travel agent tracker. So we started this at the start of the pandemic. We run it every fortnight and we ask our travel agent audience what kind of inquiries, bookings they're seeing. So in the most recent period, which was prior to Friday's announcement, so 17th to the 30th of April, 91% of agents had received inquiries and 51% had seen an increase, and 48% saw bookings increase, which is quite key. Now, we've had sort of various different travel agents come out and say since the announcement, they have had a lot of people coming forward and asking questions, and that's really positive. Not necessarily for the green destinations, but because the government has given a green light to travel overall, I think there's more positivity and more confidence amongst consumers to start booking for later on in the summer, perhaps looking more at autumn. And I think that's what's key, because it's been illegal to travel for so many months, hasn't it? So the fact that we can now travel, I'm trying to cling to, and I think a lot of agents are, and I think customers are, because now they've finally got hope. But certainly I can't imagine many people are going to be taking off on the 17th of May to Gibraltar, Portugal, Iceland or Israel, the four that we've got in the mix. I'm hopeful for later on in the summer, and certainly the US and Canada, well, maybe not Canada, but the US I feel hopeful for. But yeah, it's incredibly frustrating because we've still got zero clarity, haven't we, about even when the 3-week review is going to take place.
Claire, do you think your readers want to travel again? And do you think they want to travel to amber countries? And obviously there are loopholes around the way you can get to some of the amber countries at the moment. Do you sense that they're eager and raring to go, or are they going to wait 6 months and go in the winter?
Okay, I don't just sense that they're eager. We know that they're eager because of all the, we're really lucky that we've got a constant dialogue with our readers. We are held to account by them on a daily basis, apart from anything else. And, we know that they're booking. My own parents booked flights last week, for one of the summer breaks they've got booked. I feel quite optimistic. I think if you are, if you can afford to book, why not? I think we're about 6 weeks behind. Europe's about 6 weeks behind us. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a normal summer. I think booking patterns will be inconsistent. I think travel opportunities will be inconsistent. But if people are keen to travel and they're flexible, and I think there are actually, Paul, some very glamorous destinations in Spain and Portugal. And I think, I am hopeful and optimistic that Europe will go green in time for the summer holidays. Will it stay green consistently? I don't know. But, we've seen BA adding 90,000 seats to the Sunshine, Ryanair to Portugal alone. I think it's an improving picture. And I think that it will only improve buoyed by the confidence of the consumer. The government can do a lot to help that, as everybody else has said. They can start being more clear. They can start by being clear. They can start by being more consistent themselves and more transparent. So that we know what numbers to look for. So you can start hedging your bets somewhat. So yeah, I'm booked. I'm optimistic. We have readers who are booked and booking.
Where are you booked to?
I've got a week in Mallorca and a week in Puglia.
In June or July?
July and August.
Okay, so you're
but I've got more annual leave to use. So I'm just waiting to see.
I think everyone watching has got a lot of annual leave to use, I suspect.
I'm going to be honest, we are not saying to our readers, throw caution to the wind and book it all up now, because that isn't going to suit everybody. But what we're trying to do is provide individual advice to a very large readership. If you are in this situation, you might want to think about booking. If you have the backing of a tour operator, if you're booking responsibly, and you can afford, if quarantine comes in, you can afford the tests, all of these kind of things, you could book now. But I am quietly and practically confident.
Quick question to each of you, and I'll start whilst we're on with Claire. Quick question, same question to all of you. Have you noticed that your audience or your reader demographics have changed during the pandemic? How have they changed, if they have changed? Claire?
It's grown
and
Yay!
audience
age
group changed?
I think we certainly have many more younger, very engaged readers who have followed, and many of whom, like a lot of our older readers, who don't have incumbents, who don't necessarily have to stick to school holidays, who have literally been using our, the blog and our advice like a Bible for when to book. But also engagement has grown across families and our core readership, who have, rather than perhaps reading our print sections, are now also logging on daily and following all our news updates and consumer advice, and and the fun first person stuff as well. Lots of people had quite a lot of time on their hands, so we were very happy to entertain them.
Yeah, and sorry, one quick final question to you, just before I go to the others on demographics. Are you going to keep your daily travel blog going after the pandemic, or is it just a pandemic tool?
If there is demand, we will certainly keep it running. We aren't currently running it over weekends, but that could change. We're very flexible, and I don't see, as much as I'm optimistic about the summer, I don't see travel going back to what we knew as normal for many months.
Okay,
so
hold that
certainly
thought. Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that very issue. Mark, your demographics, have they changed? Has your readership grown? Can you enlighten us a bit? You've already got a huge readership, obviously, being the Daily Mail.
Well, I mean, circulation has stood up pretty well during the pandemic, given that there's so fewer outlets actually sort of selling the paper, and our readers are tend to be on the sort of older side. And I think that we feel more engaged with our readers than perhaps we ever have done in the past. And certainly, we get so many letters to our desk, people unhappy, wanting advice and that sort of thing. And so I think our role has been very much to try to keep informing people and trying to tell them what's going on and present them with choices. Whether or not we've actually picked up younger readers, I'm not sure about that, but I think we've certainly we found new readers, and because I think that there's just so much confusion out there, and they look and they trust the Mail and think that we've got our sort of fingers on the button. And so I think I think we've done quite well from that perspective.
Lyn, have your reader demographics changed? Obviously, you've changed the ownership also of Wanderlust recently, so a few changes, but can you sense any differences?
Yeah, the online audience, like the others were saying, the online audience has grown. That just exploded last year, and it's still really high. And our coronavirus updates, which gives the entry requirements for each country, has been doing incredibly well. And so online as well, we've seen a growth in the younger end of the audience. And so that's been interesting to see. And again, to echo the others, we've had greater engagement too. And so we've never felt closer to our readers, I think. And certainly, we've been doing events as well. We do events most week, virtual events, and have such an engaged audience in that. And a lot of that has been based around this idea of dreaming, thinking of when we can travel again. And so they do really well. And so, yes, overall, yes, I would say yes to both. We've brought in a younger audience and we've grown the audience and had greater engagement.
Great. Mark, do you mind just muting just whilst you're off there? That's great, thank you. Sophie, same question, your audience online, how's it grown? Has it changed, or is it obviously your core agent and operator market?
Yeah, I mean, it is our core agent and operator market, but I would just to echo the other points, we've never felt closer to our audience. And I think especially since running the Safe Travel campaign that we did last July, August now, just really kind of championing the industry and bringing the industry together. We've had fantastic engagement, readers get in touch regularly. And then of course we ran our Holiday to Help Out campaign in November as well, which I think just really reached out to operators that might not have been as engaged with us before, who are now kind of regular readers. And we see that because we can monitor all of our readers. We've got a subscription site, so we can match their behavior and see what they're doing. And it's interesting, there's obviously a lot more home workers now, as you would expect. Travel agents have obviously been furloughed or have been laid off and have moved into home working. So we've obviously seen our home worker readers rocket. But yeah, just to echo the other points, just much greater engagement, which is great for us, and it should be strong.
Right, let's look at the future then, and where travel is heading. So I'm going to start with Mark on this one. My own view, for what it's worth, is that and it's not worth a lot, but in 2 years' time, I think we're going to be back to normal and where things were pre-pandemic. Mark, what do you think 2 years looks like? Are we going to see long-haul destinations come back strongly as they come off red and amber lists? Are we going to see people going back to their traditional habits and not worrying about being in crowded places? Give us your thoughts.
Well, Paul, I would defer to you on all matters in this. You are the oracle on all things.
We need your views, not mine.
You're on every radio station, every television network. Yeah, I think that I think we'll when we do go back to normal, I think there will be just slight little shifts. I think that people will perhaps plan a longer holiday somewhere. That they'll be perhaps a little bit more adventurous. I think that just the idea of sort of sitting on a beach might not be quite so appealing to our readers. I think that a lot during this whole kind of year, people have learnt new crafts, or they've read things, or they've looked into history. Be quiet, Andrew. And I think they want to explore that further. And so I think there will be sort of a shift more towards sort of cultural breaks and things like that. I think that's what I would say.
Lyn, do you agree with that? And also, Mark was talking there about longer trips. Do you think people will take longer trips, but maybe fewer trips for sustainability reasons, and for flying less, for example? What's your view there?
Yes, I think we were already seeing a bit of a move that way, certainly within some sectors of the market. And I think this has sort of speeded up that process, really, with people thinking about the environment as well. So I think from that point of view as well, yes, longer trips, but fewer. I think as well, I think the big change will be that people won't take travel for granted again. I mean, that is the message we've been getting, you know, through various reader surveys and everything. People just keep saying that again and again. And so I think there'll be an increase in, I hate to use the phrase bucket list, but I think there will be an increase in that whole sort of bucket list type idea, that people won't think, oh, I can do that next year, I can do that 5 years down the line. They'll be wanting to make sure that they have amazing trips, that those trips will really count. And I think we will also see a growth in, I hate to use the phrase again, but workations. I think there will be more people realizing that they can go away for a few weeks and base themselves overseas, maybe take the family with them, but work while they're overseas, perhaps do a combo of, you know, working and holiday. So I think we'll see a shift towards that as well.
Claire, do you agree with the sentiment that family holidays are going to do really well because people want to see the people and be with the people they haven't seen for over a year? And also, where are you on cruise holidays in particular, and whether the cruise sector, which has been booming in terms of future bookings, can really deliver in the future? Just unmute there, Claire. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, so we're already seeing a big spike in interest around multi-generational family holidays, grandparents wanting to take away their extended family, but also, you know, families who may have been under strain at home, homeschooling and so on, just wanting to escape and get away. You know, I think we are going to be dealing with a bit of faff around booking holidays for the next 18 months or so. I think that's fairly predictable. I think people will start to get used to it. You know, we've had incidences in the past where major disruption to travel, people have ended up getting used to it. I think you know, I'm not so sure that the sustainability trend is going to continue as we were seeing it before the pandemic, because I think for everyone who thinks, oh yeah, I'll, you know, take a workation or a longer holiday, there will also be people who go, well, we can skip across, you know, that we can just take a couple of days, we can get a really cheap flight, and they will do that. Even more so because they haven't been able to, and now they can. So in that way of not taking travel for granted, actually they'll do exactly the opposite. So I'm not convinced of the environmental impact, but cruise, yep, really strong interest in cruise. It's very important to our readers. It's been a big subject of conversation throughout the pandemic, and you know, it'd be interesting to see what happens to itineraries as we come out into an uncertain world, how cruise companies are going to manage that. But, you know, at the moment, a mystery cruise sounds like a very good idea to me. So,
and you think people are ready to cruise? Your readers are ready to cruise? If they could go
absolutely.
tomorrow, they would they?
Yeah, tonight.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tonight, okay. Sophie, do you think there's a young old split emerging here? So those who've been fully jabbed, or certainly jabbed once, are the ones who are going to be traveling first and are happy to book right now, whereas those, say, under the age of 35 who are being jabbed much later are frustrated and concerned that they can't really get out and travel unless they pay for an expensive PCR test.
Yeah, well, you said the expensive PCR test, that in itself, I think, is a huge frustration for the industry. And we've seen all of the lobbying to try and get the pricing down. It is interesting that the older generation, who obviously this time last year was so cautious and so worried about traveling or even moving around the UK, they're the ones that are itching and raring to go, and understandably, because they've had their jabs. And that's why everyone's been itching to get this COVID passport going. As to whether the young ones will be a little bit more concerned, the younger generation, I'm not so sure they will. I think they tend to be a little bit more carefree anyway. And certainly, when we look at the types of holidays that people are inquiring about, young people seem to be itching to get away just as much as the older generation. And to Claire's point on cruise, I think what's really interesting is we're seeing that soaring, and certainly in our travel agent tracker, it was the second most popular holiday type, and it has consistently been in the top 3 most holiday types booked for recent weeks. And what's interesting is that these staycations that the cruise industry has launched this summer, where we're having all these UK bookings, apparently it's bringing quite a lot of new to cruise customers. So people that wouldn't necessarily have tried it otherwise, because they haven't got many options. And, for a while, unless you wanted to holiday in Britain, that was your only option to kind of not go abroad, but to not be on land in the UK. And apparently cruise companies are actually seeing quite a large, surprising rise, even for them, in terms of new to cruise customers. So I do think cruise is actually going to boom and potentially bring quite a lot of people that would never have tried it before into the industry, including potentially younger people, whereas it's always been traditionally a much more older demographic.
Yes, certainly bodes well for future generations, doesn't it? Let me ask each of you finally then for your tips on PRs, in-house, agency, those responsible for promoting their companies across the sector, and what you're looking for. So I'm going to start with Lyn on this one. And Lyn, I know, like everybody on the panel, you're deluged with daily emails and press releases and WhatsApps coming through and any other channel that anyone can find to reach you. Give me in 20 seconds, if you would, your tips on what you really want from those who are watching this panel.
Oh, just good, relevant ideas, things that we can easily get a story out of, or do a roundup, include in a roundup, because at the moment, actually, an awful lot of the focus is on the website. That's getting so much traffic. And so we want nice newsy stories and nice things that include in roundups, but are relevant, to traveling in the next few months.
Thank you. Mark, to you, same question. What do you want and what do you not want?
Sorry about that. I never want to hear the word virtual ever again, and I never want to have to go around some hotel online, or just want to get somewhere and just sort of feel alive again. And in terms of what we're looking for, I suppose it's just really original ideas now. And I think that, during this time, I think PRs have done a great job in really difficult circumstances. And sometimes I'm amazed at how imaginative they are, and sometimes stretching some tiny little nugget into some huge kind of great story. But I think that's great. And I think, we're all basically in the same team, as it were. And so I think they've done really well. And just, we're always open for ideas of any kind, even bad ones.
Daily Mail runs them all. Sophie, same question to you. What do you really want to hear and what do you not want to hear?
Yeah, the biggest word for me was what Lyn said in terms of relevance. I think that's what's really key for us. There's so much news going on, and sometimes we'll get a release saying a resort has launched a new cocktail, and it's like, come on, people, look at the general news agenda. Let's reflect that. And I think just being really mindful about that, and heeding the kind of government destinations that are coming on and off the map, and being really mindful of that, and sending through relevant, timely press releases, setting up strong interviews with industry leaders that we can talk to, that our readers want to hear from.
And Claire, finally, in a nutshell from you as well, what really does the Telegraph want to hear and not hear?
We want booking insight, we want data, we want speedy reaction that hasn't been through 9 corporate filters. We want stories before anyone else, sorry everyone else, and we want brilliant ideas. But also, I echo Mark, we want to see you. Please, God, want to see some real people.
Get out there and see the world again. Well, hopefully we'll all be doing that very soon. Thank you all very much. Terrific answers from Sophie Griffiths, editor at TTG, Mark Palmer, travel editor of the Daily Mail, Lyn Hughes, founding editor of Wanderlust, and Claire Irvin, Head of Travel at the Telegraph. Thank you all very much for joining this IMM Travel Editors panel.